Good morning, ma'am.
Good
Good
morning.
morning,
How are
sir.
you?
Good morning,
I'm
Raghav.
fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Can
this
we?
CFDP platform from all of us here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this kind invitation. It was really good from your end. Uh, we are meeting online virtual after a very long time now.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, thank you once again for this invitation. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we start, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Madam, is screen visible?
Over to you. Yeah, it's visible, sir. Over to you, Sneha.
It's my honor to introduce today's eminent speaker, Dr. Raghuveer Pisurlenkar, who is working as Associate Professor in Pharmaceutical Chemistry at Goa College of Pharmacy, Goa. He had completed B.Pharm from Goa University, while M.Pharm and PhD from Bombay College of Pharmacy, Mumbai. He has 15 years of teaching and research experience in organic and medicinal chemistry and biostatistics. His research expertise are quantum chemistry, structure-based and ligand-based drug design approaches, biomolecular simulations, estimation of free energies of binding, and solvation using molecular simulation. He has been funded by various agencies like DST SERB, CSIR EMR, AMRF, and University of Mumbai for his research work on lead for GPR 119, new leads for targeting Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and novel triple reuptake inhibitors. He has more than 60 international publications, one national and two international patents to his credits. His industrial visits includes Beijing, China, and Madrid, Spain, which has been supported by travel brands from UGC. He is a member of professional societies like Royal Society of Chemistry, American Chemical Society, and Indian Biophysical Society. He has presented and delivered many talks in national and international symposiums. So, we would like to heartily welcome a young and energetic biomolecule simulator and drug researcher, Dr. Raghuveer Pisurlenkar, for this FDP to deliver a talk on artificial intelligence and pharmacokinetics enhancing perfection. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will.
Something went wrong.
Connectivity from that end.
I think. Raghuveer, sir. Raghuveer, sir, can you hear us? I think there is some connectivity issue on his end.
Hello, Raghuveer sir. Hello.
Ask him to exit and rejoin again. I think so.
He has exited.
Hmm.
Yeah, I got locked out, I believe. Uh, can my presentation be activated?
Yeah, you
No,
are
sir.
visible. Huh.
You are
We
visible,
can
but
see you on
present.
screen, sir.
Okay, just a minute. I'll make a presenter.
Yeah, please wait for a minute, sir. We'll make you presenter.
Yes, sir. You can now share the screen.
Yeah, thank you. I believe my screen is visible now.
Um,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to thank Principal of Bharati Vidyapeeth, Dr. More, Vice Principal Dr. Manish Bhatia, Madam Mrs. Bhatia, and Mr. Pawar, who has been in constant contact with me with regards to my biography and all other details required. So I will present. I will not waste much time. Yeah, I am more of a molecular modeler, and with regards to pharmacokinetics and artificial intelligence. Okay, this is now the trending thing that is taking place. Artificial intelligence. Lot of this artificial intelligence, if you look at it, dates back a long time back. Movie freaks and people interested in watching fiction movies. This almost dates back to Night Rider, which used to come on somewhere around in 80s in European channels, and it got aired in India somewhere around in 90s. So basically, that was the first artificial intelligence that popped up. Now, what is
Uh,
artificial
I'm
intelligence?
sorry
Yes,
to disturb you, sir. I think there
yeah.
is some time lag in the transmission. So it would be better if you can switch off your camera. I think then the clarity would be more, I think so.
Okay, I will do that. I will just
Yes.
put off my camera.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so so what is artificial intelligence? Basically, the term artificial intelligence has several meanings. One of them refers to the simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to think like humans or mimic their actions. Now, that is the simplest definition with regards to artificial intelligence. But uh, how much progress have we made in trying to mimic a human brain? That's another topic of discussion. We can the latest what maximum is done is basically trying to influence our decision making ability. Then artificial intelligence also applies to machines that exhibit traits associated with human minds, such as learning and problem solving. So basically, artificial intelligence we are trying to use with regards to prediction, to rationalize our decisions that we make. Now, mimicking a supercomputer like a human brain would really take time, trying to create processors, trying to create algorithms that work like human. But still, we do point things, uh, trying to compare the natural intelligence with artificial intelligence. They are practically east and west, and getting them together is one of the biggest tasks. Now, with regards to this particular talk, artificial intelligence, we look at machine learning, we look at neural nets, we look at deep learning. These are the basic approaches which are used for the prediction of absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and toxicological properties of molecules of biological interest. Should you differentiate this approach from computational approaches that are widely used? There are other things that needs to be taken into consideration, like physiologically based pharmacokinetic, that is the PBPK, and pharmacokinetic pharmacodynamic quantitative system pharmacology modeling. Then further artificial intelligence frameworks are applicable with automated decision making process. The common ML machine learning algorithms that are applied in case of ADME and talks, some of them are random forest. Random forest basically is an ensemble learning approach which constructs decision trees and thereby provides outputs. Okay, it can be used to rectify its own uh, predictions and corrections. Now, the next is support vector machines. Basically, it's a supervised learning method and been mapped in space and classes separated by a hyperplane. Another method is the neural networks. It's a simple neural network has an input and hidden layers and an output layer. So in input layer is basically that is the data that is provided, the variables that are provided, the predictor variables and the dependent variables, and we have the output layer basically which is giving the predicted outcome. And then there are hidden layers which give based on weightages, which can be the weightages which can be judged with regards to the variables, altering the weightages so as to optimize the output layer. The next, another one is a KNN, which is the nearest nearest neighbors. It's a non-parametric method, basically used, especially when the decisions, whenever we have variables with regards to levels, like in status, when with regards to statistics, we have parametric and non-parametric methods, where in parameters we have got measurements which can be used as variables, but then there are certain times wherein like colors or gradients can be used wherein there are no measurements made, such as called as the non-parametric methods. Okay, so k neighbors can be made use of in such cases. Then Naive Bayes model, that is a probabilistic classifiers, which considers features to contribute independently to the probability. So we are basically trying to connect probability with regards to the variables. Then there is a deep learning approach, that is the DNN, which uses multiple layers in case of the neural networks rather than a simplified model as of the neural nets in order to get the output. Which are the properties that basically can be modeled with regards to the machine learning algorithms? Basically, solubility. The measurement used is kinetic property. Then we can use clearance. For clearance, rodent or in vivo pharmacokinetic snapshots can be taken. Then with regards to the permeability, we have the CACO, the MDCK, and the PAMPA models. Then the transporters like the PGPs can be measurements with regards to these properties can be utilized for understanding the pharmacokinetic properties. Further, metabolic stability is the liver microsomes and hepatocyte measurements. With regards to drug-drug interactions, measurements from cytochromes and transporters can be utilized. And then with regards to measurements, whether the drugs can cross the blood-brain barriers, mouse-brain endothelial cell lines can be made use of, trying to measure the transfer of drug from transfer of drug across the endothelial cell line. Then with regards to the cardiotoxicity, hERG can be made use binding and or if flux in the difference in cell types. What is the progress of in silico ADME and toxicity as of now? ADME toxicity models have made a significant progress for past 40 years. We are now in the era of the machine learning approach, wherein many models are serving their purpose of intent, complementing the experimental methods. It's all started with 1980s, wherein small data sets on tens of compounds and utilizing the quantitative structure with approach, basically work like Corbin Hanch and comparative field analysis of partial least squares made the intent over the century. Further came down algorithms, slightly larger data sets in case of hundreds were used, and many more algorithms like Lipinski's rule of five, pharmacophores, decision tree making, recursive partitioning were implemented. In 2000, the molecules from tens moved on to hundreds, then moved on to thousands, and was the rise of machine learning, RF, that is the random forest, then the support vector machines, okay, and all other methods basically to use to understand the blood-brain barrier, multi-parametric approaches, uh, and data was collected for more than 1000 compounds, okay, so in order to generate this, because now the problem with this ML random forest, you need data. The data has to be churned, data has to be created for more than 1000 molecules, and it has to be processed again on the same parameters of measurements. Now, from thousands, it has gone to hundred thousands. Properties have been measured. There are different models available: eTalks, OpenTalks. Then again, ML algorithms, multiple ML algorithms are used with increased application of deep learning. What are we scouting for? We are basically trying to answer the question that latest generation of computational tools, namely the deep neural nets, will it improve and help us in decision making in optimizing the lead compounds? That is the question mark that we have. What is the outcome we are looking at? Appropriately implemented computational models can provide a means of interpreting large volumes of data, influencing the decision making, and directing the team so as to make decisions with regards to lead optimizations of novel compounds. Modeling the outcome of compounds in the human state, that is basically the goal of connecting pharmacokinetics with artificial intelligence. Predictive models are built based on in vitro surrogates in absence or insufficient in vivo data. The quality of the machine learning models for ADMET or physicochemical properties can approach the in vitro many a times. So there are cases seen wherein the predictions are as good as the actual studies, actual in vitro studies. It is possible many a times to predict a single property, but one also needs to understand multi-parameterization approaches so as to combine different properties and different activities, because many of them are interconnected and they are correlated. Advances in modeling approaches and 2D molecular descriptors have defined shape and definitely shaped the prediction of paradigm of the ADME talks, but not all the endpoints are predicted equally well. For example, here modeling time-dependent SIB inhibition, that is TDI, time-dependent inhibition endpoints is difficult, where 3D as well as structural fragments play a big role. So there is a lag in behind because of the other data sets. Further, mitochondrial toxicity, which is an inherent toxicity, might be due to several mechanisms of cytotoxicity. So prediction becomes a bit difficult in such. When artificial intelligence models or machine learning models are created, the purpose is the quality of the model should serve in light of its purpose. A perfect in silico in vitro correlation is not. Basically, when we are dealing the model can have different outcomes. Now, it is not necessary to have a perfect in silico in vitro correlation, especially when we are in the early stages of drug discovery. Basically, we need to sieve out compounds with larger differences. Like for example, then further on as we go to later stages of the drug discovery, we need models that can so same models cannot be implemented at the next level. So when we start off with we are in the early phases of the drug discovery, the models that are created will be able to filter out structural classes. It will able to filter out structural classes and at a crude level. So it will be like crude filters. But when we are approaching to the later stages, wherein we are doing lead optimization, then the same models won't be of effect. You cannot use the same models which were used in drug discovery. Now, in this case, you need models which can distinguish whether a methyl group would be predict small structural changes. Like if you replace a methyl group with a ethyl group or demethylate a molecule, put a that particular influence that influence should be reflected into the prediction. So models have to be now finer. So finer filters are required with regards to latter stages of drug discovery. So again, it is not possible to have one model. It is not possible to have one model that will fit all the purpose. So it is not a single gold, it's not a magical bullet, or it won't be a one stop solution. So things have to be refined based on the data that is available. What are the roadblocks and limitations with regards to artificial intelligence and pharmacokinetics? Now, uh, when we talk about drug discovery, especially the the pharmacodynamic and based drug discovery, wherein we are looking at drug activity and trying to merge it with artificial intelligence. In vitro modeling is of ease. It is possible to get multiple models wherein which could able to sort out molecules for drug activity. But when it comes to PKPD modeling, artificial intelligence is still in its early stages. Artificial intelligence may be in its youth stages with regards to identifying molecules to predict activities. But when it comes to predict pharmacokinetic, still there are a lot of data. There is a lot of unknown parameter. There are a lot of unknowns which has to be resolved so that the artificial intelligence models works better. Now there are certain successes available. For example, in case of HERG8, HERG models, it is able to uh, predict surrogate toxicological endpoints, but still it is far behind from actually trying to replace the animal study. So artificial intelligence has not reached the level wherein animal models can be replaced. Because we look at it further, the proficiency of ADME talks in vivo computational models is not at all at the same levels as that of the in vitro models, because when there is a lot of complexity when it comes with regards to biology, which is different at the in vitro level and the in vivo level. So what we model at the in vitro level, we may not have direct predictions. It may be the predictions may be non-linear. Linear predictions are easier to predict, whereas non-linear connectivity correlations are a different topic. Modeling of in vivo properties is confounded by the limited amount of data, and the fact that the data is obtained is not consistent. So this is the key feature, that this is the key roadblock with regards to in vivo modeling. Then variability creeps in from factors like use of a single species or one animal strain, dosage regime, the formulation, the route of administration, the time point of data collection, the cassette or the one-on-one study, and so on. So there is a lot of variability. So if the variability of the standard deviation is quite high, then trying to create models for higher goodness of it becomes quite difficult. Like if we vary from animal to animal, or for that matter, if we vary from strain to strain, then again the complexity sets in. So again, if you are changing the dosages, if the data has been recorded for uh, one dose per day, and trying to predict 2 doses per day, again it is affected. Then the formulation type of formulation that has been created. So how there is again the formulation parameters which creeps in. So different formulation tablets, the way the tablets, their disintegration time, their solubility, all these parameters will affect the absorption of the. So again, there is a dosage to again there is a formulation to formulation variable. So all these variables, as integrating all these variables becomes quite cumbersome. Further, requirement of a computational model varies from person to person, company to company, and data to data. There is no one solution to all problems. No model fits all sizes. So we cannot have one model and then we can use it for all the possible studies that we want to do, because each drug has to be treated differently. Each formulation has to be treated differently. Again, the data, the in vivo data that is to be collected again varies. So you cannot try to extrapolate from a rat model. If you use a rat as a model for in vivo studies, you cannot extrapolate it to a mice. It's not possible. Again, you change the formulation, you change the formula route of administration, again the model will change. So these complexities all set in, and again then there is a domain overlap. So if there are domain overlap, then a correlation can be created. But if there are no domain overlaps, getting correlation from factors which are not connected with each other, then trying to get a connectivity, trying to build a model becomes quite difficult. The power of the model depends upon its usability in the medicinal chemistry settings. Now, good models should be interpretable and provide insight into the specific chemical features contributing to the measured endpoints. So, many a times, uh, this is models. If you models just need not, there are two parts when it comes to modeling. One is able to predict, and one is able to interpret. Now, many believe that prediction is fine. Some believe no, I need interpretation. So if many of these neural net models, they only have prediction ability, back tracing, that is trying to connect the prediction to what is the change. That is trying to interpret the outcome. It becomes difficult. It is not possible. Like for example, uh, uh, taking a simple example, trying to build. We have a if we try to use a simple equation, like for example y is equal to mx plus c, so we know that what change in x will what change in x will be responsible for the change in y. So we know that we increase or decrease the variable x, then y will correspondingly change. But when it comes to trying to use a deep learning model, like we have to say that activity as a structure, a function of structure, or a chemical fingerprint, or for that matter a smile of a molecule, that is simplified molecular, SMILE stands for simplified molecular input line entry system. So it is basically a single string wherein an entire complete molecular structure can be encoded into. So it will be difficult with regards to deep learning methods. One can get prediction models, but they won't get interpretable models. Many a times, with regards to chemists, interpretability is of essence. So if interpretability is built into models, then it buys in trust from the of the chemist. So a pure synthetic chemist would be more interested into understanding the change as to which leads to the increase in activity, rather than just a blind prediction. The others would say that model does not need to explain. It is not necessary that the model explains the outcome, but all I need is the prediction. It has to be able to predict me the molecule is active or not active. I am fine with that. So that is called as the AI approach. Compounds are selected that are selected with model may not be obvious to human, but just needs to work or be active. So that is the AI approach, wherein trying to figure out how the molecule, what is the change in the molecule that has caused activity, or what is the change in the property. What needs what is needed is just it is active or not active. So that is fine for with many people. Now, many the another big hurdle which comes to when you're trying to connect pharmacokinetic and artificial intelligence is data. Now, without data, finally, it is the computers that is involved into creating the artificial intelligence, or creating the models through artificial algorithms of artificial intelligence. Now, data is the key to unlocking the predictive powers of the models. So correct data will enhance the predictivity of models. The wrong data uh, will mislead the team and result in improper decision making. Now companies have got lot of data which is siloed. That is, it is discreted, it is segregated, that it has not been connected to each other. So connecting data is of essence, but it is a challenging task. Now, end-to-end data connection with smooth data flow enables application of the ML technique, machine learning technique. So all the data that is connected, there is a smooth data flow will be of essence with regards to machine learning techniques. Another, normally the data is presented in form of PowerPoint presentations and in PDFs with regards to publication patterns. Then it is of extracting the data or text mining is of again becomes a limiting step. It becomes like another speed limiter. Extracting structures which are encoded in publication patterns or reports. Again, molecular structures are normally represented, so getting them is again extracting the structures. There are certain tools like Chemexon. Chemexon has the ability, there are to extract structures from patterns and readable documents, basically, from which characters can be recognized rather than in images. Then there are certain softwares like Chemexon, as I said, which can read, process publications and extract molecular structures. Many a times, molecular structures that are published in literature, they have got R groups. So normally, instead of the holistic structures, the the methods that are used to describe structures is using R groups, wherein the core is mentioned and all the substituents are listed along with their activities or properties. So molecules in such cases have to be extracted and reassembled. Then data has to be converted into machine readable form. So if we can feed the data to the machines, then in format which can be transferred into the algorithms, then that serves the purpose. There are wide variety of machine learning techniques are applied in virtual screenings. It has been of essence. Exploring drivers, training sets, use of appropriate molecular features, and consensus modeling is an ongoing trend. So normally, with regards to predictions, use of multiple techniques, use of multiple algorithms, and then trying to come to a consensus decision, that is ongoing. So multiple ways in which one prediction can be made rather than using one single model, that is a sound solution. There are several ML-based models, ADME models that are available online repositories and in on prediction servers, which can be made use of. But however, this still remains. These are still crude, and they are basically more for the drug discovery early stages rather than for the final stages, wherein actually lead optimization is involved and finer changes in the chemical structures have to be understood in order to optimize the molecules. These tools, basically online servers and prediction models which are available, they serve provide some utility to the research community, the drug discovery community, and the underlying, however, the underlying models that are available are limited by the based on the data which has been generated. So, uh, so predicting again has to be on as a rough filter, has to be on rough estimation rather than on a finer estimation. Machine learning models are better at interpolating rather than they are at extrapolating. So as I said earlier, if we have done, if we have collected, if we have collected data using animal models like mice, then trying to extrapolate it to other models like a rat or or rabbits or dogs or any other species, or for that matter even other strains of mice, again becomes difficult, but trying to interpolate within that range is always possible. Extrapolation is some feature we actually are trying at. The goal of all predictions is extrapolation, but prediction models till date are very good at interpolation within the framework of study. The deep learning neural nets have become quite accessible. One of the softwares available are MATLAB. MATLAB have a lot of modeling parameters. It can use machine learning. It can use deep learning. Plus, there are other in-house algorithms which are developed by pharmaceutical industries, which are patent and which are practically for in-house use. Okay, so some of these models are not accessible, but again, uh, deep learning, some tools are available. Then deep learning can solve problems depending upon the size and quality of the data set in question. As I said, if you have 5 or 10 molecules, with pharmacokinetic data available, then it practically becomes difficult to use deep learning algorithms or machine learning algorithms which utilize data in which require observations, that is data for at least 100,000 or more or more. then again scalar vector machines. So the data that is required is quite large. Now, a comparative study was done by a group from Merck and the University of Toronto, wherein some 15 data sets were utilized and compared. So what was seen is the deep learning models showed only 0.04 improvement in the R square compared to the machine learning algorithm. So there is no margin, that is a marginal difference. So 0.04 is really marginal. But however, deep learning models are of essence when it comes to multitasking. That means you are looking at multiple outcomes. So you are using multiple variables and looking for multiple outcomes. That is, there is a y1 y2 function as a function of multiple x parameters or x1 to xn. So in such cases, deep learning models are quite useful for predicting multiple properties, which at times is inhibitions with our traditional approaches, like trying to predict aqueous solubility and hERG inhibition. So these properties can be simultaneously be predicted by the same variables, same independent variables. Again, knowledge of molecular interactions can be transferred from one task to another. So in deep learning, the data the outcome that has been the outcome can be transferred within tasks. Multitask models are more efficient than making separate models when the endpoints are correlated. So when the endpoints are correlated, we see when we try to connect the dots, we see many of the things are connected to each other. So in such occasions, multitask models are more efficient rather than building individual or separate models. Performance is increased when similar compounds are used to predict multiple tasks. Normally, traditional ML models and DNN are at more or less at par. Okay, they do not have much difference, but there are certain differences which we can point out. Though DNN occasionally outperforms the ML models, okay, we have seen one example in the earlier slide. However, the improvement is marginal. But then there are certain things which DNN can use, like like DNNs can be used for understanding images, or it can be used to understand strings. Like if you have chemical structures in form of smiles. So smiles, which basically stand for single molecular input line entry system, so which cannot be used in case of machine learning. So just if you have got variables, just a property can be connected to smiles. But with regards to machine learning traditional approach, we would require chemical descriptors in numeric form, whereas DNN can be used with regards to non-parametric methods also. It has been seen that DNN models slightly outperform the ML algorithms when it comes to large data sets for physicochemical properties like log-D. So if log-D has to be calculated for large data sets, then ML and DNN are almost at par. What does the future hold in? We basically need to have enhanced collaborations basically between the groups that are ADME people who are doing the biology, that is the generating the data for ADME and toxicity for the small molecules in the drug discovery program, and people who are involved in the building of the models. Then again, the data has to be appropriate. So normalization of the data while generating itself. If normalized data is generated, then creating models becomes quite easy. Then facilitating the end users to take up the model so as to so that understanding of the models and utilization of the models can be enhanced. So if models are used, if these prediction models are used and outcomes, then the correlation data, then the data that has been generated after the models have been used, that data can be transferred back into the machine learning algorithm in order to further optimize the predictability of the models. These are some of the companies that are involved using artificial intelligence. There is quite a big list. I've just listed a couple of them. There's a Helix, which is basically using artificial intelligence for repurposing of drugs for rare diseases. There's another company which is called as Atomwise, which is using deep learning algorithms for structure-based drug design. There's a Recursion Pharmaceuticals using again deep learning. There's a whole biome company who is using artificial intelligence to study the microbiome. Then the Benevolent AI, basically using knowledge graphs and drug repurposing. So with this, I would like to thank the organizers and thanks the audience for listening. I would like to once again thank the organizers for giving an opportunity to talk at this short-term faculty development program.
Thank you, Raghuveer sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Participants, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Or else you can also post your queries in the WhatsApp group. Okay, Raghuveer sir, generally, what are the limitations that we observe while the artificial intelligence is being used in the pharmacokinetics predictions?
Ma'am, if we want to let's say we are trying out with say 10 compounds. Now, if you try to find out the log P of 10 compounds which are connected with each other, they have got similar features. Then you can use molecular descriptors or chemical fingerprints and try to use simple models or simple partial least square or genetic algorithms, which was the trend in early 2000s. Genetic algorithms was also using it was more or less of artificial intelligence, but still it was using mutation as a concept to try to connect trying to connect the variables to the predictions. But with regards to artificial intelligence, more the data that is provided to the model building algorithm, the models get refined much better. So I had approached one of the companies who had they have their model was openly available, but the problem to apply to my data set, they told me, they did not deny giving the model, but what they told me is that the model has to build a model itself, it requires at least 100,000 to 300,000. That means almost 3 lakh molecules, data of 3 lakh molecules. In academic scenario, it practically becomes difficult collecting so much of data. There is one because the data which is available, trying to collect the data. That is the first part. And secondly, most of the pharmaceutical companies, the data that they create, it is not in the open domain. It is still in the private domain. And again, trying to connect data which has been measured on different parameters, like converting those data, measurements methods are different. So all these actually increases at the moment we start increasing the variations in data, it starts affecting the prediction power of the model. So artificial intelligence has been doing really good when it comes to drug discovery. That means finding out molecules, searching molecules. But when it comes to fine tuning the molecules between, like just trying to make a ethyl methyl change, will it affect? That is really difficult to predict. That so artificial intelligence does have its own limitations, but there are areas wherein artificial intelligence is doing super good. So there are areas wherein trying image processing, for that matter, there are very varied fields other than drug discovery where artificial intelligence has shown its good outcomes. But when it comes to drug discovery, yes, but pharmacokinetics, because the in vivo itself, the biology is fully not understood.
Yeah.
So every molecule is the data that is created has its own variations. Like for example, if we take 10 humans and we try to give paracetamol to them, if we just take 10 humans and we give paracetamol to them and we try to take their blood samples after every time interval, we will see a lot of variation in that data itself.
Yeah, right.
From human to human and from time to time, we are not able to correlate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and sometimes I think when they say you're studying some metabolic parameters, or you're trying to judge the metabolism of a new molecule, in that case also, I think does the artificial intelligence take into account the genetic variations, or like in terms of, say, some of the patients may be deficient in some of the enzymes, some of the patients may be more liable to metabolize the molecule. So, can the artificial intelligence take care of all these parameters?
Ma'am, parameters, if they are provided into the data set, then yes, the algorithm can take care of it.
Yeah,
If
no, but
that algorithm,
yeah,
it is basically, ma'am, an input-output based concept. So
yeah,
if there is a data which is trying to connect, if that frequency of the recurrence of the genetic parameter is if it is, if the system can detect that there is a that say for example an enzyme deficiency is concurrently affecting that, then we need to have those many patients. Like for example, if we have 100 patients, okay, and one of them has got an enzyme deficiency which is actually affecting the drug, let's say, then the artificial intelligence may not pick that genetic model out. It may treat it as an outlier.
okay. Then I think in that case, suppose if we have already understood from the databases earlier, which is available. So in that case, I think if the in the algorithm we can incorporate it that if,
Yes,
say, a person is deficient in this kind of an enzyme, in that case, say a
yes,
molecular structure is having these many chemical features, then
yeah.
probably this kind of a metabolic difference may occur. So then, do we have to feed such kind of data to the
Yes, yes.
algorithm?
If 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 we can feed that a chemical difference is connected to, if we can see that if there is a difference in that connecting, then the machine can definitely observe it. But then the number of observations that need to be fed to the system with such kind of data has to be more. It is basically like it may not able to pin that particular point out. If there is more data, like there is if there is weightage given to that particular disease condition and more number of observations or more number of patients with that deficiency data for those patients have been included, then definitely yes, the artificial intelligence will able to pick it up and try to connect it with that try to connect it with the chemical difference. It can, but again, as I told, we need a lot of input data. Only on that output can be created. Because as I said earlier, I think it was based on smiles. There is one of the universities, they have tried to build QSAR models using smiles. So you don't have to give you don't have to give what is called as log P, log D, hydrogen bond count, or hydrogen bond donors, acceptors. You don't have to give any of this information. You just give the chemical smile of the molecule and the activity of that molecule. The algorithm is able to predict the activity of any new string. So you create any variation in the chemical string, it will able to predict. But the catch is the data is, but the model is only possible for 100,000 to 300,000. So for us, ma'am, it is impossible practically to create so many molecules.
Yeah. That means these still remain the limitations with the artificial intelligence,
Yeah,
specifically with reference to, I think, pharmacokinetics.
with reference to pharmacokinetics, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think,
But
but this kind of
but
yeah.
if my my assumption is that if the entire data which is available across all the pharmaceutical companies is available in an open consortium, then definitely somebody may be able to come out with models.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then a lot of data is not available in the open consortiums.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
true, sir.
makes a difficult. That is the difficulty. But it is not difficulty with regards to artificial intelligence. It is not a. It may be the hurdle for an artificial intelligence, but it is not a problem of artificial intelligence. The problem is that we don't have data.
Yeah, right.
If we have data, artificial intelligence can solve the purpose.
Yeah.
It can solve the problem.
Yeah. Finally, it's based on a lot of permutation combinations you have to think
Yes,
of, and then the algorithm can be created.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, one of the participant wants to ask the question. Deepak Painuli, sir. Sir, you can ask your question. Deepak, sir, you can ask your question. Deepak, sir, we are unable to hear you. Hello, Deepak, sir. You can raise your question, sir. Deepak, sir, I think there is some issue with your audio. I think there is one more participant who wants to raise the question. Yeah, you can ask your question, Sneha.
So I wanted to ask whether AI can be used in designing new leads, because so far what we have came across AI and ML is to enhance the kinetic and dynamic properties. So I just wanted to know solely they can be used for designing the new leads.
AI can be used, see, again, based on the data that has been provided, AI definitely can be used to provide new. To,
Raghuveer, sir, I think there is some audio
yeah,
issue from your side. We are unable to hear you.
yeah. There was a net drop for a minute. What
Okay.
I'm saying is, AI can be used for drug design, drug discovery, as well as for metabolic predictions. But in order to do so, we do need previous data which can be converted into a model directly, because it has to interpret based on something. Like for example, our understanding with, like for example, if you treat in a human brain as an artificial intelligence source, then our understanding of molecules with regard, based on our research and teaching, our learnings, we are able to decide whether molecule has got solubility or no, because we have learned our we have learned with regards to solubility, we have learned with regards to chemical features, we have learned octanol partitions, carbon counts, we have learned all this right from our graduation, post graduation, PhD, when we have been teaching as teachers and continued research. So if given two molecules to us, we can immediately detect, like we can say if a benzene and a say acid molecule is placed in front of us, then we can definitely say that benzoic acid has got a slightly more solubility in water compared to benzene. Immediately we will come to know. That is because our mind has registered that. Now, for same thing is applicable with regards to artificial intelligence. Now, if I tell my daughter who is in kindergarten, if I show the structure of benzene and benzoic acid to her and ask her to identify which is soluble, first question from me is what is soluble. And the first question to me will be what is soluble. So I need to condition the mind. So similarly, the artificial intelligence, the algorithm has to be conditioned in order to figure out in order to solve the problem. So, so the answer lies in the data itself. So if there is data, knowledge, as we have been saying, knowledge is power. So if we provide that knowledge, the knowledge of the ancestors, the knowledge of the past to the machine, then machine equally will become intelligent in order to predict a new molecule. I hope I have satisfied the person who has raised the question, participant.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. We have received the question from Deepak sir. So I will read it on his behalf. He wants to know, he has raised the query like artificial intelligence needs subjects to understand the information included in data set. He wants to ask, sir, is there any site or repository for domain expert where software engineer can get contact information experts so that they can contact them to develop any artificial intelligence model? Or he wants to say, do we need to find domain expert one by one through online searching?
No, we will have to find based on literature research because based on literature search only we can identify people from in the domain directly. There is no site directly that has come to my contacts, but yes, there are some sites wherein you can get prediction models online available because some of the universities what they do is they convert their prediction models into servers prediction models into for online support. So there are some sites like that which are available, but as of which will directly get two people into contact. I don't have any clue with regards to that. But an article I read, there was something with regards to an open consortium. Just give me a minute.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no, I was just checking out if it is available. No, I can definitely write to me. I can just provide some information on that. As of offhand, I do not have any information directly. But
Okay.
but I have seen a couple of people from India working on that aspect. One is Kunal Roy who has been working on, but he basically is stick on more onto the traditional QSR approaches. To some extent, his methods are into machine learning and fingerprints.
Yeah. I think for generating such kind of a information for development of a new model or any software like that, probably will need for every domain will need experts along with the software engineers probably. So a combination of all this would be able to create artificial intelligence
That
so
is what.
that so that we get a more accurate data or that can be generated.
Yeah, that is what I said. There are two people, the biological people from the biology domain and the people from the modeling domain. Both have to come in contact with each other. and
Yeah.
both have to share that what ones, both have to share their needs. So for example, the biological person has to tell what he needs, and the person from the modeling aspect, he has to express that what he needs from the biology person. Like for example, it is not possible that whatever data the biology person provides, the chemical the modeler can use it may not be of essence. So that the proper collaboration between these two units only can result into good predictive models.
Yeah, exactly, sir.
There is one called as atom science. There is one called as atom science, which is available on air. It is called as the accelerating therapeutics for opportunities in medicine. It is called as atom. Accelerating therapeutics for opportunities in medicine, which is basically a consortium. Website is atomscience.org. So there, some data can be obtained definitely.
Yes, sir. Are there any more participants who wish to ask any questions? You can raise your questions if you wish to. Yeah, okay. I think we are done from the participant side, sir. Over to you, Sneha.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing the details about AI, ML, and its algorithms, application of those algorithms to enhance the kinetic properties and details about modeling. I really thank you for giving your valuable time and putting the light on this current hot topic. Thank you, sir.
And thank you very much. Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir, for
Thank you
your
so much, Dr.
kind
Raghuveer.
gesture. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm taking a leave.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, participants, so we end up over here with our morning session. For afternoon session, please connect at 2 o'clock for session 3 of today. Thank you so much.